Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Real Estate Mogul MD. My name is Bob Bosick. I'm a retired C-suite executive, and I have the privilege of speaking with medical professionals, high-income earners, and investors. We are here today to share the real-world journeys along with the to-dos and, more importantly, the not-to-dos. We're fortunate to have an interesting gentleman and doctor join us and tell us about his journey. And I've just been interested doing some background on you to have this conversation because you have some very similar interest in areas of focus professionally as I do and we do. So welcome, Pranay. How are you today?
Hey, Bob, I'm doing well. Thanks for the opportunity.
Terrific. And I'm glad that you could make it. So the first thing I always want to understand a little bit and for our listeners is for you just to tell us a little bit about your journey from school till now. Where did you go to school? What your current position was, et cetera. So why don't we just start there?
Yeah. So I started off college. I went to University of San Diego, University of California, San Diego. And there, I did a lot of stuff. I've always had a ton of different interests. I was a molecular microbiologist for a little bit. I was a marine ocean biologist, and I was a pre-med. And kind of just did a lot of stuff. And at that point, they kind of like you doing a lot of stuff. But then I got into med school, Ross University. They kind of take down the edges, right? You're this nice, well-rounded person, and then they kind of shave all that well-roundedness off of you. So I got into medicine, and I still had a lot of interests. At the time, I'd do some charity art shows and a lot of stuff. I did pretty well on my tests, but when it came to matching in a program, they looked at my application and they were like, yeah, you still have a lot of interest. Medicine isn't the only thing you care about in life compared to all these other people. So I actually didn't match that well. I got a program, I got a spot, I got a university program, but it wasn't my top choice, which kind of sucked at the time. But it gave me a reason to work hard. I kicked my butt in first year when most people kind of just take time to rest on their laurels. I really worked super hard. And one day someone told me like, hey, you're from California. Why don't you just move back and try to apply for a program and transfer into California? I didn't even realize that was possible. So that like 10 minutes later, if that, I was on the computer looking for who had an open spot. And lo and behold, University of Southern California had a spot. That was my dream program to live in Los Angeles. And I did the transfer. And I think they looked at my application and they were like, wow, this guy's kicking butt. And I knew if it wasn't for the fact that I had made a decision to just work as hard as I could, if I was kind of like some of my colleagues that were like, hey, we're chilling, like we're going to be doctors, and I think I would have done well in that program, but not as well as I'd be at USC, one of the largest medicine programs. I was internal medicine.
What is it? It's called Keck, isn't USC Keck?
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. So USC Keck. So Keck is kind of the private med school area. And then University of Southern California is like the more county.
My daughter went to USC also. So college there. I'm from Newport Beach, so we're not too far apart.
Yeah. I live in Echo Park.
So when did you? Yeah, I know exactly where you're at. I grew up in Fernando Valley, so in Tarzana, so I'm very familiar with the LA basin and all of the area. When did you finish med school?
So I finished med school in 2009. Yeah. Oh, no, wait. No. 2009 is when I started. 2014. Yeah, 14.
Very good. And then how long was your residency?
So my residency was 3 years in internal medicine.
All right. Terrific. Why do you think becoming a doctor sorted to the top of your varied interests that you had? What do you think, what was the reason for, at that particular point in time or moment in time that it bubbled to the top for you?
I really like to understand how things work and what is a bigger mystery than the body. And
Right.
probably now I have the curse of knowledge. Anytime there's a weird creak or rash, I'm like, shoot, I know 20 different bad things that this can be. But
Yeah.
my whole life has been following curiosity. And, I did that in all the various jobs I worked at. And I do that now in real estate, just really trying to chase down new problems and new solutions.
Yeah, I'm surprised when I hear people that have that same interest as you, I think, they're usually interested in a couple of paths. And I've seen many doctors who actually, went down engineering path where they're trying to, create something biomechanical of some sort or have an idea, and the brain just works that way. It's fascinating and very interesting. And so, how long did you practice before you decided that you wanted to transition into real estate?
It, so I still practice. I still work
Yeah.
part time, and it was almost immediately, and it was not necessarily a different industry or job. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to make sure that I was creating wealth, and wealth, not necessarily that I'd have access to 30 years in the future when I retired, wealth that my family would be able to tap into in the near future. I had already delayed gratification for so long,
Right.
that I wanted to have my hands on something that I can actually change. And I still don't really
So how did
understand
you
this.
dip into it? How did you first dip into it?
Yeah. So I looked around, and a lot of times you have to look around and see where do you have an unfair advantage, and there's no reason to really reinvent the wheel. So I looked around, and I realized that my girlfriend's sister and wife now, so my sister-in-law was a real estate agent in LA, and she was
Hmm.
good.
Yeah.
So I told her, hey, let's go buy a multifamily property, right? 4 units. I had done my research. I knew that over 5, you got to buy a commercial. I was like, okay, the most I could buy is 4. And
Right.
so, every night, cause I work nights and weekends, I was just stuck to MLS like all day, every day. And I found a property at 1 a.m. and I got off my shift at 7. 8 o'clock, we went to look at it. We put an offer in. I was under contract within like 12 hours of the listing going on sale. And he had multiple $50,000, $100,000 more offers, but it was just speed, And
Oh
so,
yeah, sure, absolutely. What area did you
Long
dip your
Beach.
toe?
Yeah,
Where?
Long Beach.
Oh, Long Beach. That's a great area. A lot
Yeah,
of
yeah,
people
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
that. Long Beach has got yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's terrific. And then so how many doors or units do you have now?
So it kind of depends on how you mention that. So I own in my own name just those 4 units that I bought. But after that, I realized I was like, okay, this is awesome. I'm buying one a year, and then I'll retire in 10 years. But I realized that I just had gotten super lucky at buying that one property. And competition, as you know,
Yeah.
in LA is just tough. It's really tough, right? Because
Yes, it
there's a
is.
lot of people that are okay with like 2%, 3% returns,
Right.
because they're just parking their money there. So that's when I found syndications, and I realized that there wasn't a ton of education on syndications out there. So I started helping doctors figure out how to find deals, vet them, and invest. And then over time, we all came together and started a syndication company.
Okay. And how many as a syndication do you guys have?
Yeah, so we have 8 deals for a total value of 250 million
Very
in the
good.
yeah in the past 2 years.
Terrific. That's you hold on. What's the plan?
Sorry, you're cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, you froze up, so I apologize. So what is the intent with the syndicate with these properties? What exit strategy?
So we do we buy, we renovate, and we sell 3 to 5 years. But I tell people, and especially physicians, so all 3 of us founders are physicians. I tell people it's different than other people. Our focus not is solely on returns. We try to give good returns, but we try to do it in a way that really connects to our values and morals. And a quick story on that. So someone brought us a deal last year. where the current owner was getting a refund from the government for taxes because they had a large amount of affordable living people. And that refund was expiring. It was for a certain amount of years. So they wanted to sell the property, and whoever bought it would be able to raise rent $600 per unit. And this is like a $1,200 a month rent. So make it unaffordable for everyone. Basically, the plan is to kick everyone out. They would make a killing, a fortune. But it was just something that didn't sit right with us. And so we decided
there's a social conscious element to this for you.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's very cool that you got yourselves engaged. So do you do single family residential also, any commercial, or is all multi-unit up to 4? Do you do duplexes, triplex?
No, we do 100 plus. So our smallest 100. Is 120, but typically around 2 to 350.
And where are you getting these units? Where are you finding these opportunities?
You and I live in California. We're used to paying California taxes, but no one else is. So we really focus on low tax and landlord friendly states: Florida, Texas, Arizona, Oklahoma.
Okay, so you're in other areas in other states.
Yep.
Okay, very good. I understand. Yeah, we have a national acquisition company as well, with an arm that is focused with MDs as well. I've lived in Florida. I've lived in Texas. It's a little bit different than living here in California for sure. I totally understand that. What's the biggest challenge you faced in this process, and what have you learned from it?
The biggest challenge we've realized is, so we always partner when we do deals, people with 20, 30 years of experience, but we realize that we have to be the experts. You can't just rely on someone else. So, in this past year, we've become experts in the capital markets, meaning debt, right? Loans. And now I think we're more knowledgeable than even people that we partner with. So, for example, I'm sure your listeners know about Silicon Valley Bank and the crisis that happened.
Yeah.
We had to buy something called an interest rate cap, which means it caps the amount of interest that you pay on a loan.
Yep.
We had to buy it. It was $1.5 million. It was a lot of money.
Wow.
And we heard about Silicon Valley Bank. We reach out to our bank and be like, "Hey, what is going on with the interest rate caps?" And they were like, "Oh, like no one has asked us this." And they're a humongous bank, and they're like, "Oh, let us check." And interest rates crashed. So we basically, long story, we got a $1.5 million thing, which literally the day before it was $1.5 million. We got it for $820,000.
Wow. That's terrific. And so where are you, in Houston, the Dallas area of Texas? Are you on the Pacific or the Gulf side? You in Tampa, Miami? Where are you at in Florida?
We do Orlando.
Orlando, great area too. Yeah. Sure. Yep.
So we're in big cities. We're in Orlando, Phoenix, Oklahoma City, Dallas, and Austin.
Gotcha. Excellent. Yep. Know all of those areas very, very well, having lived in many of them and or around them. So is there other areas that you invest? Do you do a retirement account, stocks and bonds, or is it exclusively real estate in your syndication? How are you doing that?
For me personally?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say probably 80% in syndications, because I actually have control over that. And the other benefit is they're tax deferred, right? And we offer, most syndicators don't offer this, but we offer 1031. So we can just roll your money over and over and over. And that's how it really grows. Not having to pay that, 25, 30% tax every time there's a sale means your money's going to just grow faster and quicker.
Right. Interesting. Very, very, very interesting. When do you think you'll at some point in time make a permanent transition and just be dealing with syndication and shut down the medical practice?
Probably it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to do that. The problem with hospitalist medicine is that you really got to be at least have one foot in the door, because you do internal medicine, so you have to know the whole body and all the research. So you kind of just can't half do it. So at some point, I'm going to have to really decide. But right now, I'm really enjoying doing both.
That's good. Who's someone that the listeners may not know in doing your research and all of the studies and varied interests that you have? Who's someone that the listeners may not know, but they should know?
Ooh, that's a good question. Let me think. Who is someone that... So I really like taking control of your life, and not just being productive or having time management, but really doing things with intention, right? And you can
purpose.
You can watch TV with intention, right? Even if it's reality TV or something. But
sure.
You're doing that, right? So one book that's been amazing is Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. And it's very counterintuitive, but for people that are like your listeners that are conservative in terms of spending money, that really think about their future. But what he argues a lot of times is that our net worth just keeps growing and growing and growing. And instead, so when we die, our net worth is at the highest. And he actually says we should invert it, where our net worth should be the lowest at the end. That means we've really utilized money as a tool to have as much fulfillment as possible.
Right. Yeah. I completely understand philosophically that, the old adage, dying with it all and going to the grave with it all serves no real purpose, right? I mean, what was the point of it all if that's what you're doing? So tell me a little bit about how you get and what are the numbers of people that you get involved in a project. So let's just say we have a 200 or 250 unit property that we're thinking about in Orlando. In terms of, raising the funds, how do you structure that? What is the rate of return that you're providing, et cetera?
So, of course, it depends on the deal. We try to aim for around a mid-teens IRR, rate of return. And that's after all of our fees, all promote and everything. So we think that's pretty comparable, or even better than the stock market. Nice thing is this is money in your pocket, and tax deferred, right? So that's a huge plus. So for us in California, right, that's 50% higher than we would get if we were taxed, or if that was part of our W-2. So we really try to make our deals accessible to people. So our minimum is $35,000. So
I was just pretty
much every physician could do that. And then we add incentives for people to put in more. And we think that's a good balance between us being able to have high level of customer service. People are surprised how often I pick up the phone. They're like, "Oh, I didn't mean to call you, Pranay." I was like, "No, we like jumping on the phone and talking to people, explaining this stuff." But also the higher checks kind of help us not have a million people in each deal. We try to aim for around 200 to 300 people per deal.
Gotcha. And the timeline horizon you're wanting them to commit to is 3 to 5 years?
Exactly. So 3 to 5 years, depending on the property.
Okay. And then what do we do at that point? You're going to sell the property, or that's just you don't hang on to the property afterwards. You're going to go turn it over.
Exactly. That's the business plan. So 3 to 5 years. And then depending on the property, there will be an option to 1031 if it makes sense, meaning we take all that money, put it into a much larger deal, and defer all the taxes.
Terrific. If you could go back in time and tell the young you when you were in college, something that you've learned between here and there that you wish you would have applied or been thinking about when you were in college, what would that be? What would you tell yourself?
Bob, I've actually thought about this a lot, and I don't know if there's much I would want to say because I'm really hard-headed. I had to make a lot of mistakes to get to where I am, and I really like
We
where I am
all
right
do in
now.
this business. We all tell stories. I got stories actually in Florida, in Jacksonville, pulling up to a house I purchased at an auction to find that it was there was a pool in the back that I didn't know about, and I had to fill the pool up with with dirt and concrete and do all of it. We all have stories at the beginning, until we can establish relationships and get to know who to work with and do all of that. So yeah, I understand that.
So I think it's really I think I'm very trusting in the beginning, and I think really kind of boiling back to trust but verify, and
Yep.
now fortunately I have a team to do that for me. But I think that's it's pluses and minuses, right? When you're very trusting, it helps you get into a lot of good stuff, but
Yep.
when you're too trusting a little bit,
Get
it takes
burned.
you got to go through. Yeah, you got to go. Yeah, you got a lot of bruises.
Yeah, you develop scar tissue for sure. I totally relate to that. And then when you go to buy a purchase of property in whatever area, do you do it remote, or I mean, I know you can do all of the all the paperwork remote, but will you go and walk your property
Oh,
before you do
definitely,
it?
definitely. So we walk all our properties. We are on property management calls every week. Personally, we walk the property once a month, sometimes twice a month, if it's we're doing the business plan. People are sometimes surprised that when we partner with people, they're like, "We don't do it this much." We're like, "I don't care. Like we
Nope,
want to."
that's the way you can do it. This is the way we do it.
Yeah, it's just nothing beats laying eyes, and it's kind of like when you have employees, like when they see you there, if nothing else, you're not
Yep,
talking to them, you're not doing anything, but they see you and they see that
physically
commitment
present.
that you're making. It just, yeah, presence, it means a lot.
Absolutely. So, where can our listeners find you? Where, how could they, if they were interested in getting engaged, if they wanted to reach out to you, what are some ways and methods that they could do that?
Yeah, so our website, ascentequitygroup.com/start, START. That's where people can sign up for our email list. We have a bunch of educational materials because we really focus on education. And I have a podcast as well that you can find on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and it's called From MD to Entrepreneur.
Terrific. Well, it's been terrific talking with you. Very interested in hearing your journey and story. Uh, I find it fascinating to talk to people with intellectual horsepower because they always have varied interest usually beyond what their profession is, and it's fascinating. In fact, I talked to a doctor in the last month, I think it was, and he was in the middle of college, and he goes, I just want to go to med school. Do I have to actually finish college? And he went and looked up the rules and he applied, and he was at, I think it was Penn or no, it was Temple. He went to Temple, and he says, I'm probably one of, I don't know, maybe a handful of people in the entire country that are medical doctors without a college degree. I got into medical school. I passed got my scores, and it was just an interesting talk, right? And he has varied interest, and it's always fun to talk with folks that have that horsepower and their varied interest, and it's always nice talk. So I really appreciate you joining us today, and it was a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Thank you.